This is Right on the Money with Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management.
Our mission at Mosley Wealth Management is to help people make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life and they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Since 1995, Tom Mosley and his team have been creating comprehensive, custom financial plans to help you preserve what you've earned and pursue what you've envisioned.
In retirement, a lot of people have built a great lump sum. We call that your lumber yard. But you need a blueprint to put that lumber yard into a plan that you can build a retirement house to live in.
What's on your mind this week, Southern California? The stock market, taxes, inflation, income, Social Security, how to ease into the life of your dreams? Let's discover conservative financial strategies starting right now. This is your Right on the Money Radio Hour with Tom Mosley.
And a very happy weekend to you. You are listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. Each week, Tom and I are committed to providing you with retirement planning solutions. We have another great show for you this week. If you are nearing retirement, you are not going to want to miss it. So, Tom, my friend, great to be with you. How are you?
I am doing well, and I hope you are doing as well.
I am. Thank you. It's always a great time to be with you. And last week we had a really great show, got a lot of response. It was talking about all the things folks need to be doing to prepare for retirement. This weekend we thought we would take it in even more closely to that 5-year period. What if you're 5 years away from retirement? What do you need to know? What do you need to do to get ready? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And Tom, I know you and I were speaking before we got on the air today that we have a list of 10 things we're going to go through. And it's not so much about the order of getting these things done. These are just things that need to be in place, right?
Right. If you look at the top 10 in a basketball ranking, or you look at the top 10 in a football ranking, and you get together with a bunch of people, they're all going to have their opinion as to who's number 1, who's number 8, who's number 7, who's number 2. And that's pretty much the way it is with this show today. I'm going to go through, we're going to try to get through all 10 of these things in the first half of the show today. And we're going to talk about things that, not just like last week, we were talking about the long term of preparation for retirement, like, the preseason, the regular season, and the games. And if you wanted to boil the analogy down to one game, it's what you do in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. We've even done shows on stuff like that. Now we're talking about the red zone. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about that last 2 minute, the 2-minute warning went off. And I think with retirement, what I see, Kristen, through the years is most of you out there really blow the whistle, take the time out, do the assessment like they do with 2 minutes left, and then everything is crucial in those last 2 minutes. And usually the team that wins the last 2 minutes wins the game. Regardless of whether they're ahead or behind. But if they really get their act together in that last 2 minutes, as long as it's not a blowout and there's no chance, the team that wins the last 2 minutes usually wins the game. And so today, when we talk about the retirement, when it's 5 years away and what do you need to do to get ready, we're talking about that 2-minute warning. It's here. I mean, it's on us. What are we going to do about it?
Right. And I think, we've talked about this before. Can be very overwhelming for folks when you're not sure what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So we really hope that today's show is going to help eliminate a lot of that overwhelm and give you the solid steps you need in order to make sure that you can be as prepared so that you can win in those last 5 years leading up to retirement as well.
To your point, and it is overwhelming because it's something you've never done before. And if you think back to, you probably, when you're getting on up in age, there's not a lot of things you haven't done before, but when you tackle something that's big, I mean, really big, and we're talking about the last 20 or 30 years of your life, it's humongous, especially since you've never done it before. And maybe you had parents or an aunt and an uncle. I had a couple in this week, and they had an aunt and an uncle who had totally misprepared for retirement. They just were
Mm.
not prepared whatsoever. And the aunt and the uncle had no children, so they left all of not the assets, because there weren't that many assets out there, but they left all of the problems to mop up to
Mm.
this couple. And they
Mm.
said, we don't want to be like our aunt and uncle. We want to get prepared, and we want to get everything in gear and in line, because you have that fear because you've seen other people fumble. And
Exactly.
one of the worst sources of advice that many people can get, I always like to clear this up, is if you're sitting out there and you're getting your advice from Bob at the water cooler, or Bubba the plumber, or even your brother or sister in many cases. I can't stress this enough. Every one of you that are listening to this has a different situation as you're entering into retirement. And I know you and I, before the show, we talked about your personal situation, Kristen, with
Mhm.
your husband, and I'm going to give that a look. And when I look at that, though I have looked at thousands of other people, there's going to be some similarities, but
Mhm.
there's going to be things that are entirely different to Charlie and Kristen. And if you're out there and you're George and Myrtle, is what I always call everybody that's out there, what I can't stress enough is your situation is entirely different than anyone else's situation. So you need to get some professional advice as to the small little nuances that are involved in your situation and your plan.
So true. And hopefully, Charlie and I will be a great case study about people in their mid 40s and what we can even be doing now to prepare for retirement, even though we
Ex-
are, outside of that retirement red zone like we're talking about today.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Awesome. Well, first on the list of 10 things is to get a plan. We can't stress this enough, right, Tom?
Listen, I am so excited. We have 3 couples, along with my wife and I. 8 of us are going to Kalispell, Montana. And if you know
Mhm.
anything about Kalispell, Montana, we're going up there for a week in May. And, a little bit early. It might not all be open yet because it's still, snow-packed on top of some of those mountains. But we're going to Glacier. We're going to Glacier National Park. Now, let me tell you something. We're going up on the 19th of May. We're not going to wait until the 16th of May to start calling around for reservations for a car or a hotel. In fact, my wife has already said this weekend, I think I'm going to go buy some things for Glacier, because she thinks she needs certain kinds of clothes, and she certainly needs to protect herself against cold weather, even in May up there. So you understand what I'm saying? We're getting ready for a trip. And so we're getting a plan together. I've already booked the rental car, because we're going to get 2 rental cars, 2 little SUVs. We've already booked the Airbnb. My wife said a couple of weeks ago, she said some of our luggage is pretty old and it's getting some tears in it because the baggage handlers like to practice shot put with it. And so, we're getting everything together, and we're putting together a plan. And so many times I've seen people come into this office and they have put more planning into a 2-week river cruise through the heart of Europe than they have put into a 20 to 30-year, 2 or 3 decade retirement. So you need to get a plan. You need to meet with somebody like an advisor, like we do. We call it a retirement blueprint. And we lay out, based on what you have accumulated and what you have, we lay out the future. What are the final little things you need to do in this 2-minute warning that we're talking about? What are the things you need to really put together and turn that lumber yard you've built through the years in your 401k and 403bs and 457s and the pensions and the Social Security that you built up? How do you turn that lumber yard into a written plan that
Mhm.
you can follow out? And what we're doing is we've got a little text message deal going back. We call ourselves the gang, and GANG. We don't write on walls and things like that, but we do text each other. Are you going to take this? What time do you guys get there? And we've got it planned. What couple's going to ride with my wife and myself, and what 2 couples are going to. We're getting
Mhm.
all the nitty details together as we get closer to bingo, May the 19th. So
Mhm.
that's exactly what you need to do in retirement. You need to get a plan. Who would
Mhm.
go into retirement ill prepared? And that's what you need. Get a plan. Meet with somebody who's done it before, not Bob at the water cooler who's
Mhm.
got his plan, but somebody who's going to look at your whole picture and say, this is how you're going to be able to go have fun in your 60s and also not run out of money when you're in your 80s and 90s.
So important to have that plan in place. Everything stems from that. And as you were talking, Tom, it made me think of how an advisor is really like the travel agent in that analogy, right?
It's exactly right. You're there, you're pulling strings, you're saying you need to do this, you need to do that. And their travel agent is not going to dictate to you what you're going to do. The
Mhm.
travel agent is going to say, here's your option. You can do this, or you can, we want to do that. Okay, fine. And they're going to build that into your plan based on, and you need to deal with somebody who's dealing with all of the options, not somebody who says, oh, I hate that option. I don't show that to my people, or I don't like that option. You need to say, hey, what are the options that are available? What fits your role and what fits your lumberyard to build that into the plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we need to move on down the list here. The next item, second thing on the list, is to build up your emergency fund.
This doesn't have to be long, Kristen, but there's so many of you out there who think, well, once I get to retirement, everything's pretty set. Let me tell you something. In retirement, you still need an emergency fund. I call it life still happens
Mm.
in retirement. Just because you retired doesn't mean the transmission always lasts in the car. Doesn't mean the refrigerator never goes out. Doesn't mean the roof doesn't need to be replaced. It doesn't mean the house doesn't need to be repainted. Everything still happens and surprises still happen. So you need to have an emergency fund so that you don't have all of your money locked up, tied up, invested in things, and then you've got to go break those investments or break those things to get it. You need to have a healthy emergency fund, even in retirement. Some people overlook it.
Hmm. So key. Well, I know we're going to have to take a break pretty soon, but the next one on the list, max out your retirement accounts.
Yeah, and I just talked to somebody yesterday in the office, and they were saying, "What can I do in the next 4 years until I retire?" Exactly what we're talking about. What can I do in the next 4 years? And they made the decision to go back. And for the next 4 years, they're over 50. They're going to put $30,500 a year into his 401k, but they're going to switch over and put it into a Roth where they're going to go ahead and pay the taxes. So the
Mhm.
question is, are you maximizing your 401k or your retirement accounts? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have a written plan? These are just three of the things that you need to get in line when you're 5 years from retiring.
And if you would like help getting your plan started, it's never been easier. All you need to do is call this number, 888-930-5609. And for no cost, no charge, no obligation, you'll be able to schedule an appointment with the team of Moseley Wealth Management, who will create your very own customized retirement blueprint. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to continue on this important list of the 10 things you need to be doing within 5 years of retirement. Stay with us.
You've heard the phrase, you don't know what you don't know, and we believe it's especially true when it comes to retirement planning. There's a lot of information out there, and it can be overwhelming and confusing. So how do you know what you don't know? Social Security, RMDs, estate planning, investment risk. These are just a few of the many areas that a financial advisor can help you navigate. But what else don't you know about retirement planning? Are you aware of all of the tax implications of your investments? Do you know how to optimize your Social Security benefits? What about your long-term care and estate planning needs? We believe that by working with a retirement planning advisor, you can uncover potential blind spots in your financial plan and gain a better understanding of your options. Don't let unknown factors potentially derail your retirement. Take control and work with a financial advisor who can help you work towards planning out a comfortable retirement. Call Tom Moseley and the team at Moseley Wealth Management today to uncover what you may not know about your retirement future and start your complimentary retirement blueprint. Call 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Moseley. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and today we are talking about what you need to do if you are within 5 years of retiring. We have a top 10 list. We made it through the first 3 in the first segment. So, Tom, the fourth thing on our list is the critical decision regarding your home. that house decision. Do you pay it off or do you not? Let's talk about that one.
Or do you sell it?
That's
Do you
true
trade
too.
it? Do
Yeah.
you downsize? I mean,
Mhm.
for every person that's told me in 29 years of doing this that they wanted to downsize in retirement, probably 99% of the time it's the wife who said that. I've had people say, we don't need 4 bedrooms anymore,
Right.
and when they go on vacation with the kids, they usually go to some remote place or some destination rather than coming home like they did 4 decades ago, when we were young and we went home to our parents maybe on vacation. So you need to make a house decision. Where do you live? A lot of you are out there and you're trying to decide, do I live in California or do I move somewhere else? Maybe,
Mm.
you don't like the crowds, you don't like the freeway, you don't like the taxes, you don't like the politics, you don't like this, that, or the other. And you're going to move somewhere and develop your own new list of things you don't like there. Okay, I just
Mhm.
want to tell you that
Right. There's
because
no perfect place, right?
there is no perfect place. And I've had people move. I've had people move in 29 years and they move somewhere where they said, I want to move somewhere where I get to see the seasons. And then
Mm.
they come back to visit family or friends and we have an annual review in person and they say, we hate the winter, we hate the snow and we hate this. So where are you going to live? Are you going to keep the house that you're in now? Are you going to downsize? Are you going to pay it off? Those are all financial decisions. You say, what do you mean where I'm going to live is a financial decision? Wouldn't that be a great thing to sell my house here and go buy a house that's a lot cheaper somewhere else? It might be. It works for a lot of people, but it might not work for you because it doesn't work for everyone. Think
Mhm.
about it. If you sell your house here, of all the people, the realtor loves you here. You go buy a house there. The realtor loves you there. If you don't like it in 2 years, and like a whole lot of people, they move back to California, you sell your house out there and you got 3 realtor bills so far, and you move back out here and you want to buy another house. And so you've got a 4th bill for the realtor, and the governor likes you because
Mhm.
you've lost your Proposition 13 tax situation. And so you're paying more in tax, maybe for even a smaller, half the size, half the value place that you were when you had Proposition 13. Be careful moving away from that house out of state when you're leaving your family, your friends, your church, your synagogue, your mosque, your doctor, all the things you're familiar with. Okay, be careful moving away and be careful downsizing because a lot of your treasured memories are in that house. But here's another thing. If you want to fix that house up, fix it up, do it sooner rather than later. And that's where you need that structured plan to say, how much money can we spend on redoing the kitchen so we can enjoy it the next 20 years or 30 years?
Mhm.
Or here's a bigger one, redoing the bathrooms and
Mhm.
and making sure that the bathrooms are what you want it to be. So all of those things are financial decisions that you might not make if you don't have a plan that's focused on the future and giving you assurance that you've got a plan that your money's going to last.
Yeah.
So that's why you need a plan so you can even fix up your house or decide on your house.
Well, that brings us to the next item on the list, which is also could be linked to the house decision. It's eliminating debt. But I know that it's not just a mortgage we're talking about, there's other debt involved.
There's other debt involved. So many people that are retiring right now are coming in, and you've taken those blessed Parent Plus loans, and yours aren't getting forgiven because your income is too high, and so you've got to pay off a student loan debt, or with inflation having hit now approaching 20% over the past 3 years and 2 months since January of 2021, with inflation now right at 19+%. And I saw, Kristen, in the Wall Street Journal this past week,
Mhm.
where food inflation and what you're spending on eating out and food and at the grocery stores up 29% in the
Mhm.
past 38 months. So, you say, well, it really hasn't impacted me, but 2 things to check. Are your savings accounts coming down? Number 2, are your credit card debit accounts going up month after month after month? So don't go into retirement if you possibly can. I think it's worth working an extra year to get your house paid off if you can. This is
Mhm.
where you need to start 5 years ahead of time, or your credit cards paid off, or your student loan debt paid off. It's like the Hebrew scripture passage that says, when you're going to run a race, lay aside all the weights that just
Mm.
easily throw you off. And all of
Mhm.
those debts are weights. And I liken having your house paid off and your student loan paid off and no debt in retirement to running the low hurdles. You're
Mm.
still going to have those month-to-month hurdles versus running the high hurdles where
Right.
you have to just almost stop and jump every month to pay the mortgage, pay the student loan, pay those big credit card debts, get them eliminated. And you got to do that. You got to start 5 years before and start having a plan. And this is what we do to help you structure that plan to get ready for retirement. It's not just about your investments and what you're making, it's your debt and what you're having to pay to service that debt on a month to month that can really submarine and sink your retirement plan.
Mhm. So important to be on top of that for sure. Well, next up, because we have, gosh, 5 more to get through. Time flies, right? Next up
Yep.
is updating your estate plan.
Right. So many times people get to 55 or 60 and they realize I'm going to retire within 5 years. I need to get my trust and my will in place if you need a trust and a will. You know, the motivating factor more than that, Kristen, is when their parents pass away
Oh, yes.
and their parents don't have a trust
Yeah.
and don't have a will. They come running to me at those times and saying, "What's that trust attorney's guy's
Yeah.
number that you use?
Well,
We need to get our act together."
I have seen this time and time again as well, Tom, and it's so sad, when people, but it creates great motivation when they've had to clean up someone else's mess. They go, "That I don't want that to be me."
Right. Well, to your point, it's not going to be you. It's going to
Mhm.
be your kids,
Right.
and you
Yep.
say, I don't want my kids to have to go through what I went through. We were just
Right.
this week working with a couple who are trying to clean up, like I said earlier, an uncle and an aunt's estate.
Affairs. Yeah.
And I had another call this week from a long-term client who's having to clean up his parents' estate, and he and his brother have solved a little battle they've been in for over a year. They
Mhm.
haven't solved the issue. So having a trust where it's all laid out and your plans are dictated within that trust, it's so valuable.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that you will help walk folks through that because I think that's one of the most overwhelming pieces that a lot of people put off for sure. Well, next up is determining your retirement budget. And as we said earlier in the show, this isn't so much of the order that you should do things, because I know a budget is such a foundational thing, but it's a key aspect of this list we're going through today.
One of the key things I say on this show over and over is in retirement, it's not your lump sum, it's your income that makes the biggest difference. And your income and what you're making needs to be determined a little bit by your budget and what you're spending. So when we say determine your retirement budget, if you don't have a budget, you need to get one even working. And then if you do have a budget, you need to determine what's going to change when you move into retirement. You might not drive every day to El Segundo, but you might travel not to El Segundo, but to Venice, Italy, or to Bora Bora, or to those key places that I always like to travel. So you
Mhm.
need to know what you're going to be spending in retirement. Your budget needs to be certain.
For sure. Now, this is an interesting one on the list. Number 8, gather or consolidate your stuff. And I see stuff in quotations. What do you mean by that?
Your 401ks, your
Mm.
IRAs, your 403bs. I've literally had people come often, almost monthly, to our meetings that we have all over Southern California, where we talk about Social Security and taxes, and
Mhm.
then the retirement masterclass. And in gathering their stuff, they find out, oh yeah, I forgot I had that old 401k. Just recently, a guy came in and he said, I'm so glad I did this. I forgot I had a 401k, and I found out I have $162,000 in it. So
Wow.
there's a stuff they'd even forgotten they had. Just collecting it and gathering it. Let's tie some things together here. If you pass away and leave all of your stuff scattered out there to your kids, they might not even be able to find it because you
Right.
forgot about it. So
Exactly.
it's
Yep.
really important for you to consider that.
And we could do a whole episode on all the benefits of consolidating, right? We'll have to
Yeah,
add that to our
absolutely. We
list of
should. We
things.
should.
Yep.
I'll
To
write
talk
that down.
about.
We should sometime.
Absolutely. Well, then the last two on the list are quite fun. Number 9, build your bucket list.
Build your bucket list. I mean, if you've got a proper retirement plan, you're going to have the confidence to spend money in your 60s during your go-go years going. If
Mhm.
you don't have a proper retirement plan, you just hope it's going to last. So many people are so fearful and intimidated. One of the things we started the very first segment this morning on is you're so fearful and intimidated to spend money in retirement because you don't know what you're going to have if you reach 85, 90, 95 years of age. So build your bucket list after your plan is done and go spend it and have it. And number 10, I'll tell you, go have a party, okay?
Mm.
Go have a good time. I encourage a lot of my clients, and I see a lot of them, have a retirement party. It's a celebration. I
Mm.
mean, so many times we celebrate everything. We celebrate kindergarten graduation, and we celebrate
Mhm.
the end of Little League, and by a big party with the team, and the end of soccer with our kids and our grandkids. And you go to all of those parties, and you a high school graduation, certainly, and a college graduation. Celebrate your graduation into retirement. But the better way to do that is to build a plan and to really focus on it in those last 5 years, so you've got some certainty going into retirement.
Well, and there's no better way to have that certainty than to make sure you start with a plan. And that is what we love offering to our radio listeners. This is completely complimentary to you. If you would like to receive your very own customized retirement blueprint from Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management, all you need to do is call 888-930-5609. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be addressing the silent killer of retirement. Do you know what that is? And how can you be prepared for it? Stay with us.
More Right on the Money with Tom Mosley right after this. Get your own no-cost retirement plan review at 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Will you outlive your money? It's a scary thought, but it's a real concern for many people. In our opinion, that's why it's crucial to have a solid retirement plan in place. We believe that with proper planning, you can work towards making your money last as long as you do. Don't wait until it's too late to start thinking about your financial future. Call Tom Mosley and the team at Mosley Wealth Management today to learn how we can help you create a retirement plan that can potentially help you obtain peace of mind and security for years to come. Don't let the fear of running out of money in retirement keep you up at night. Take control of your financial future today by calling 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Can you remember how different life was when you were 10 years old and 20 years old and 30 years old? You could be retired for 30 years or more as well. Imagine the different stages you will experience in a long retirement. One of the biggest concerns for most retirees is running out of money in retirement. If you've never planned for decades worth of income spending from your investments, savings, Social Security, and other resources, you don't want to get it wrong. Actively plan for a successful retirement by working together with a financial advisor whose practice designs these retirement income strategies every day in their firm. Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management devises retirement income strategies for listeners just like you, and it's complimentary to get started. Call Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management and ask for your own complimentary retirement income strategy. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California. And I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're having a great show today, and we are going to be talking about the silent killer of your retirement. We're talking about inflation. And I had to take pause when you mentioned that stat earlier in today's show. You were talking about how the cumulative inflation for eating out in grocery stores over the last 38 months has been between 27 and 29%, which, I mean, I notice it when I go grocery shopping, right? I feel the pain of that. But when you put a number to it, 29%, that's a lot. That's
Yeah,
high.
it's amazing. There was a post on Facebook recently about one of the several guys have a hamburger place,
Mhm.
and you know the number and you know the name of the place, and for the regular hamburger, fries, drink, the whole nine yards, there was over $20 over
Wow.
$20
Yeah.
just for that. And the $1 big burger at one of the other places that was $1 just a few years ago is now $5.80 for the same
Mhm.
hamburger. So everything is up.
Yep.
Everything is high, and inflation is like that silent killer because we're not going to stop eating.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
I definitely am not, even though I should some. But you know, we're not going to stop buying gasoline, and
Mhm.
it really, you know, surveys have shown recently it really hasn't deterred how far people are driving or how much they're driving. Nobody stays at home. It's not high enough that people stay at home and say, "Well, I'm not going to drive because of the price of gasoline." It's
Right.
that silent killer that just keeps creeping up and sometimes down, but most of the time up, that just really grabs us after a while, and we're shocked when we stop and we take a look at it and we say, look at what things are costing now.
Well, and you mentioned something to me when we were on the break that I think is really important to point out, that when they talk about inflation, they actually remove certain things from the equation. Can you shed some light on what you were sharing with me?
Let's see, I try to remember that by two F's and two H's: food and fuel, housing and healthcare.
Hmm.
Those are four major items that constitute right at 68% of what the average American spends. Now, let me tell you how they calculate inflation. They can take any of those four out. Let me go over them again. Fuel, that's your gasoline, and food, that's what
Mhm.
you eat, your health care, which most people don't want to live without, and housing, which most of you like to live in a house. So they take all of those things and they can take any of those four elements in or out. And what they do is to try to make it look good, because they're trying to make it look good. And
Mhm.
they come out with a number and they said, this is inflation. Well, when they come out with that number at the first of the month, what you really need to do if you're being astute is you want to look back a couple of months, because they can always go back and adjust those month before or 2 months before on the unemployment and on inflation and everything else. And what happens is sometimes they come out with a number that looks really good, and it ain't that good 2 months
Mhm.
later when they finally go back and adjust it. Because if they considered all of inflation, they would have to include those all of the time. But if one's really high, they'll just take it out, leave it out, so we seem more adjusted to it. And one of the reasons they do that, and it really impacts retirees, is because that inflation rate impacts how much our Social Security goes up
Mm.
every single year. And that's a huge boondoggle payment for the government. So they want to make sure and keep it under control, because they don't want to just pay the higher and higher and higher inflation amounts out to all of the people who are drawing Social Security.
Right. And again, I think when people think about retiring, and we started off today's show talking about that 5 year window before retirement and what you need to do, I think inflation is really taking its toll on folks, because now not only is our money needing to last us longer than it ever has before, because we're living longer than we have before, but we have to combat the effects of inflation on a fixed income, on a fixed budget. So, what is it that our listeners need to know right now, and what can they be doing to combat this?
Well, the first thing I would say, and a little bit of change of what I've got for notes because it ties into exactly what you're saying, is you need to evaluate your plan right now. If
Mhm.
you're with a traditional big box broker who is using a Monte Carlo simulation, which probably 85, 90% of them do. And they give you the, hey, you've got a possibility of 80% or 90%. If they get that far in the simulation, a lot of times they want to leave off those last few pages that don't tell you there's an 80% chance you'll make it. What it's really saying is there's a 20% chance you're going to run out of money before you run out of life. But that's the Monte Carlo model. Take 4%. Whoops, it came out a couple of weeks ago. Don't take more than 3.2% of whatever you have every year, and index that 3% for inflation, and you should be okay to 80% level.
Mhm.
Well, how did that 3% work the last 3 years when we've had a cumulative total of 19 plus percent now in just the last 3 years and 2 months?
Right.
So are you adjusting your plan? Have you, you know, that broker you trust, that broker who's made you a lot of money, are they good at making sure that that money lasts, which is entirely different than what you've done for the 40 years to get to retirement? Are you working with somebody who focuses now on making sure that you win the game? that you don't run out of money before you run out of life. And that preservation stage is entirely different than the previous stage. So the action to take is evaluate your plan. You shouldn't have to call the financial advisor you're working with to have you come in every year and reevaluate your plan, especially in a rampant inflation like we've had for the last 3 years. Somebody should be calling you. 19% loss. That means that if 3 years ago your money would last from January 1st to December 31st, this year it's 19% short. This year, that means that about sometime in the middle of October, you're going to run out of money if you have the same amount of money coming in that you had coming in 3 years ago, because the money's got to go further. You got to have more money to go all the way to the end of the year this year. So evaluate your plan. And then there's some other things. Let me rattle them off here. Okay. You say, well, what happens? I'm not retired yet. What do I need to do to calculate for inflation? Maybe you need to save more. Maybe you need to adjust your plan. Well, the lady I'm working with or the guy I'm working with hasn't told me I needed to do that. Well, be sensible about it. If things are costing 29% more to eat, and if you can plan to continue to eat throughout retirement, I would say you need to adjust. Okay. That's a pretty basic thing. Evaluate and save more. Maybe some people are deciding right now, with inflation the way it is, they're delaying retirement. A recent survey, Go Bank Rate, came out and they said 19% of the people who are 55 to 64 years of age are delaying retirement now. And another study said that 40%. A lesser study, wasn't as broad, but it said that 4 out of 10 of the people it surveyed were delaying retirement.
Well, and I just want to point out, Tom, what's interesting is I've looked at some of these studies too. It's not saying delay retirement, even 5 years. Even just delaying it for 1 year can have a significant impact on your income lasting you.
It sure can, because you're adding to it another year, theoretically, and you're not taking out an extra year. So every year you work, it's a double whammy for you, as opposed to every year you retire early, it's a double whammy against you. So here's the other thing. We've talked about it on this show. You need to refi your retirement. Some of you are in CDs that are paying piddly because you got into them a long time ago. You need to try to upgrade what you're getting on those CDs right now. Your money markets are paying more right now. If you are in an annuity, you need to reevaluate that right now, because it's based on interest rates, bond rates, inflation rates, and they're very high right now. We're replacing a lot of annuities with better annuities. And that's what we mean when we say refi your retirement. Here's what I'd like to say to you out there. If you haven't had a thorough evaluation by anybody in the last, let's say, 24 months, then you're working with somebody, if you're working with somebody who's pretty irresponsible, because things have changed. You need another look. You need a constant look at what's going on. And that's what we offer when we say, come in, meet with us in one of our offices. We will sit down with you and we'll look at your situation, just a fresh set of eyes. And we'll say, here's what we recommend for you to counter inflation. But what we talked about also earlier in the first part of the show, to make sure you have a plan to get ready for retirement so you enter it properly.
The team of Mosley Wealth Management would love to help you with any and all these areas that we're talking about today, but you have to pick up the phone and call. We encourage you, don't wait. Financial failure, the number one cause is procrastination, and there's never been a better time to make sure that you can have a solid plan in place that can give you the peace of mind you need so that you can win at your retirement. That number to call is 888-930-5609. When we come back, we're going to be diving into some listener questions. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
For your own no-cost retirement blueprint, call Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management, 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Are you worried about taxes eating into your retirement savings? By engaging in savvy tax planning, you might be able to create greater tax efficiency in your retirement plan. At Mosley Wealth Management, our team of retirement planning specialists can help you explore tax-deferred and tax-free investment options, as well as strategies to help potentially minimize your tax burden in retirement. Don't let taxes derail your retirement plans. Let us help you create a tax-efficient financial plan and work towards maximizing your savings and minimizing your taxes. Call Tom Mosley of Right on the Money and Mosley Wealth Management today to learn more about our tax planning solutions. Call 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm Kristen Oakley, and it's that time of the week where we love to be able to answer our listener questions. And these questions we're going to be sharing with you today, they're all questions that have come in recently from throughout Southern California. But Tom, before we get to those, I want you to be able to remind our listeners all of your different office locations, how conveniently located you are.
Well, we're all over Southern California. Our main office, we have been here for about 29 years, is in the Anaheim area. We're right across the street from the stadium here in Anaheim. It's our main office, home office. It's where all of our marketing people are, all of our operations people are. Our salespeople go everywhere to all of the offices. Now, let's start down south in San Diego. We're right off of the 15 freeway in Scripps Ranch, right at the Carroll Canyon exit there in San Diego. People all over San Diego, you guys find us really well down there. And we're out in Ontario, right off of the 10 freeway, right off of Haven on Inland Empire Boulevard near the airport in Ontario. We are in Arcadia, right on Huntington Drive, right off the 210 freeway. And we're in Glendale, right off the 134 freeway, downtown Glendale on the 17th floor of the building there at 655 North Central. So those are our physical locations. Now, recently I was driving to Phoenix, and I mentioned this last week, and I was in Blythe, way out on the border of Arizona, and I was listening to our radio show. I'm thinking there are a lot of you out there who've, yeah, it sounds good. Glendale, Arcadia, Ontario, Anaheim, Scripps Ranch, that sounds good, but I'm 200 miles or 150 miles in Bakersfield. Or we do have people who come in to our Glendale office from Santa Barbara, but there may be some of the rest of you who are out there and saying, I'd really like to get some help, but I'm not close to one of the offices. No, let me hasten to say something. It is much better if we sit down in person with you, because we can do a really big back and forth. You can get a feel for who we are. You can see our offices and see us in real life person. But if you can't come in, we would love to meet with you by Zoom. And if one of those offices, if you're within a few miles of those offices, make the effort to come in. But if you're way out in what we used to call the boonies and you're way away from one of our offices, schedule with the people when you call in, schedule a Zoom call with us, and we can at least have a meeting. And then maybe you'll decide, hey, maybe we want to drive down. I recently had some people from up in the Lancaster area, and they were there, and they did a Zoom call, and they said, we need to meet with you. So they met with us, and now they're clients, so because they met with us first by Zoom. So we want to make that offer to you that we have 6 offices now. We have an online office, and if you need to meet with us by Zoom, we'll be more than happy to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing all the different locations. And we are going to now dive into some listener questions. Just to let you know, these are real questions, but we always do change the names to protect your privacy. So if you have a question that you would like us to answer here on the air, we invite you to send your questions to info@mosleywealthmanagement.com. Again, all you have to do is send an email to info@mosleywealthmanagement.com. Our first question this weekend comes from Colette in Rancho Bernardo. She said, I've checked into long-term care coverage and it is quite expensive. Is there a way to cover my husband and myself without actually having to buy an expensive long-term care policy?
Quick answer to your question is yes, there is a way. Comment on your first statement that long-term care coverage is expensive. Yes, it is.
Hmm.
Very few carriers anymore in California are covering long-term care. So therefore, when you're one of the only ones out there, you've got almost a monopoly and you can raise the rates. And I've said before, it's like, have you ever coughed? Okay, I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay more for long-term care. Because see, life insurance is what's your probability of living? And that's pretty certain, living or dying. But long-term care is what's your probability of needing care?
Hmm.
And that's a lot more vague and a lot more up in the air. And so therefore they're charging more for it. So is there a way to cover yourself? I will tell you there are some hybrid products. Some of them are annuities where, let me give you the three options you can have. You can put your money into a fixed indexed annuity, and the money that goes in there, right now I've got one in California that pays an 11% bonus for you to go in there. You lock it in for a 10-year period. You can get 10% of it out every year after the first year. So you've got the guaranteed 11% up front. It's earning anywhere from 4, 5, 6. Some of the indices in there are earning 8% and better. So you can make money with guaranteed principal, never go down. And then if you're drawing income from that fixed indexed annuity, let's say you're drawing $10,000 a month from that fixed indexed annuity, or you're drawing $5,000 a month, it will double if you
Hmm.
go in to a long-term care facility, or if you have 2 of the 6 activities of daily livings that you can't perform and you just want some home health care help, it will double what it pays out for a 5-year period. And it's a great policy. And remember, that policy is also guaranteed to last and pay out income as long as you live. So if you live into your 90s, you live to 95, you live to 97, wherever you draw the line, then you're going to continue to get a payout for as long as you live. That's the beauty of those fixed indexed annuities. So they're not just for income anymore. They're
Hmm.
for activities of daily living, for home health care coverage, for a death benefit to give to your family. All of those things are there.
And we understand that that is one of the biggest concerns folks have about retirement because those costs are so exorbitant. So I'm really grateful that you provide alternative solutions because I think it's a huge source of worry and concern for folks.
It is, and a lot of people are out there, and you may be sitting there, and if you're like most people, you're saying, you know, I'm married, maybe we could care for each other, at least there'd be somebody else. But if you're single, those things
Mhm.
are very, very popular with single people because a lot of single people say, I don't know if my kids would take care of me. I don't know who would take care of me. Well, if you've got a policy like that, that's not necessarily a long-term care policy. And let's think about that too, Kristen. A long-term care policy, and you're giving your money to the insurance company. And if you never use it, you may be putting $350, $400 a month into something that you may never use.
Mhm.
But if you put the money into an annuity that will pay you those kind of benefits, you still control the money. And if you don't ever have the need for long-term care, then that money is passed along to your heirs.
Right. Important to know that for sure. Well, next up on our list, we have Owen in Ontario. And this is a great question on the heels of our entire conversation in the first segment of today's show. Owen says, I'm 53 years old and I want to retire. I have $1.4 million in my 401k and own 2 rental properties. I need about $60,000 per year to live. Can I do this? What are the issues that I would have by retiring this early?
Absolute question I had this week. Okay. Great question. Here are the pressures you have if you retire at 53. Most people would consider a real retirement age of 65. So you're retiring 12 years early. So you've got 12 years, and in most people's lives, that 12 years from 53 to say 65 would be some of the top earning years and the top saving years for you to get to build that retirement nest egg. So not only are you going to miss out on those top 12 retirement earning years so you can put money into your retirement nest egg, you're also going to start drawing from that retirement nest egg. So it's not just you're going to miss out by drawing, you're going to also miss out by not being able to contribute. So that's one thing to consider. How are you going to cover How are you going to cover your income for life? If you live to 93, you've got a 40-year retirement. So 1.4 sounds like a lot. The rental properties, what we would do if we sat down with you, Owen, is we would break it down and we'd say, how much do you need for a budget every month right now? And let's break that down and say, okay, if we started accessing this money, whoops, let's talk about accessing. Your 401k at the age of 55, you're able to take money out of the 401k, and you're able to do that without a penalty through some special circumstances, like a 72T that's too in depth for me to talk about on here. But if it's in an IRA, you can't access that money until you're 59 and a half. So you've got some limitations as to your access to even your own retirement by retiring that early. So there's a lot of things. And how am I going to cover now for 12 years my health insurance until I get to Medicare?
Right.
Kristen, this question is symbolic of, like, it's the old, I opened a can of worms with that question. You think, Owen, you've got one question out there in Ontario. There's a lot of questions that need to come back to you. And you say, well, how do I know that I've got all of those questions asked and all of those questions answered? That's where working with a professional, a financial advisor like we are at Mosley Wealth Management, that's where that will help you. I have 6 all-star advisors on my team. One of us will sit down with you and we'll go through a questionnaire and we'll go through from all of our experience, because we pool everything on Monday and we talk about every single case that any one of our advisors are dealing with, so that we want to make sure that every question you need to ask gets asked. We don't want that question that didn't get asked to be the one that submerges your retirement plan and makes it not work. That's what we do as professionals to build your retirement plan. That punch that you don't expect, we don't want you to not expect it, because you're going to get hit with some things like early Medicare and those kind of things. You just need to know about that. When we build a retirement blueprint, we ask tons of questions based on where you are specifically. And from a blank piece of paper, we, with you, build a retirement blueprint that you can live with for the rest of your life. But you've got to call in and ask for it.
And again, that number to call to get yours is 888-930-5609. This is for no cost, no charge, no obligation, simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how the team of Mosley Wealth Management can help and serve you. Hey, thanks so much for joining us this weekend. We appreciate you being here. Until next time, be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next week here at Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.
Tom Mosley and the team have helped thousands of folks like you in Southern California plan for their retirement. Now make the call yourself. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management Incorporated. Mosley Wealth Management and Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership license number OB61811. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refers to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength, claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the needs of an individual situation. All hypothetical examples are provided for illustrative purposes only. They do not represent real-life scenarios. Mosley Insurance and Financial Services, nor its agents or representatives, may give tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any investment decisions. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Some of the information provided may be from one or more third parties, which we believe to be reliable sources, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Insurance and Financial Services.